Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with us today is Nathan Francis. Nathan helps young people take back control of their minds through the subconscious mind pathway. He believes everything else falls into place once you help people become consciously aware of why they're doing the things they're doing. Welcome to the show, Nathan. It's really great to have you here.
Hello, Jill. Thank you for having me. I'm glad I reached out to you in a podcast group of 1.2 million people or whatever it is in there. So I'm glad we could connect this way.
Yeah, and you're all the way in Australia, and I'm over here in the United States. So we're like time traveling, and we had to coordinate everything in order to make it work.
We did. I'm glad we did. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a really awesome podcast that you have. So I hope
Well,
a few
thank
of
you.
my listeners can subscribe to you. And yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And you are the host of Breaking Free podcast, which
I
I'm
am.
excited to share with people too. So tell us your story. How did you get started?
Okay, how do I get started? Well, my journey started at the start of 2020 for most people. So I was one of those people prior to that stuff starting that would, drink, party, sleep around, and do all those things that young men do. And for me, it got to a point where that lifestyle was taking its toll. I was starting to get fit anyway because all that stuff that went down in 2020, not sure how aware and awake your audience is, but I became very aware of what's going on in the world. And I started taking control of my health and things started changing. I started changing. And for me, I knew I always had a voice. I knew I always had skills that I could offer because prior to that too, I was a teacher and I love working with kids. So I always had a passion for helping people. I just was doing it in a different way. And for me, I looked myself in the mirror at the end of 2021. So this is a bit of a fast forward now, and it was a weekend. It was a Saturday night, and I went, right, I'm gonna have one last night of this stuff. I'm gonna look myself in the mirror, which I did, and I said, Nate, this is your last night of drinking, partying, carrying on, being immature, sleeping around, treating women this certain way, which I'll get to the programming of that in a minute. And I just put it out there to the universe, put it out there to spirit, put it out there to God, put it out there to Jesus, whatever your audience believe, and just let that handle itself. So 12 hours later, I'm sitting on a plastic fold-out table. I was drunk, I was high, I was all those things, and there were three young girls sitting on the opposite side of the table, and I was just doing my thing as I normally would at that time of the morning, and I fell through that table and I hit the ground hard. And for me, that was a rock bottom. It was a moment of, are you going to continue down this path or are you going to do something else? And I remember going to bed that night and I woke up 3 or 4 hours later and my mentor now had just done an interview, a podcast with another buddy of mine as well. And he was talking about self-sabotage, the subconscious mind pathway and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I do all this. I I have negative thoughts. I do things and then it happens and I'm like, why did I just do that? Why do I treat women and people this certain way? Like it just resonated with me. Anyway, I got some free advice and different things happened and from this it was about December, yeah, probably about this time 3 years ago, he launched the coaching school. When this podcast goes up, it will be 3 years since I actually started it. So yeah, and from there I learned about the subconscious. I learned about my own journey. I wanted my own healing, health, well-being journey. And I was like, wow, these are the things I was doing. These are the things I could be doing. These are the dreams that I've had. This is sort of how you can navigate to get there. It was all about stripping back my self-worth, my self-love, my self-care. I always had self-love, but it was in a different way, which we can get to. And for me, it was letting go of the old to bring in the new. And I was letting go of old patterns, old people, old towns, all this stuff to be like, wow, there's a whole new world out there. And for me to be able to speak on platforms and host my own podcast, if you had told me this 4 years ago, I'd have said, yeah, I've got the potential, but actioning that potential, well, that was the biggest flip. I had a mentor see something in me that I wasn't able to see myself at that point. But once I saw that potential and saw it in me, it opened up a whole new world in terms of I can see other people's potential. I can see potential in everyone here. And we all have the ability to do some pretty cool stuff. But our own programming, our own fears, our own worries, our own traumas, all this stuff sort of just becomes this big ball of energy of Oh, it's just easier to stay comfortable. It's easier to not put myself out there, and it's easier to sort of live this life of comfort rather than expand and explore and evolve and transform. So that's basically my story in a 2 minute, 3 minute spiel. But yeah, there's a lot more layers to it. But for me, it was falling through that table was the catalyst for where I am now and what I'm doing now. If it wasn't for that table, well, it would have happened another way. I feel like I was always supposed to do this. So, yeah, I hope that
I
answers
love
the
the
question.
metaphor though. Yeah, the falling through the table, or really you did hit rock bottom.
I
There
did.
was there was no doubt about it. I'm
Yeah.
kind of a similar story in a way that when I have been embracing sobriety for the last over a year now. And it was just, I just decided one day this isn't making me happy. It's not
Mm.
anything that really goes with what I want to do in the world. And I just decided to stop and had a really cool experience with a hawk, which I'll tell you about another time because I've told the listeners about it a million times. um, but I never looked back. It just was like, okay, that chapter's closed. We're moving on. And I think you can only do those kinds of things when you are able to take control of your thoughts and how your conscious mind is working in order to let your subconscious mind move out of old patterns. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Like I had the programming of, I watched a lot of American Pie growing up. So I
Mhm.
often talk a lot about Stifler, Charlie Sheen, Joey and Friends. So you could sort of see the programming I had. They had Charlie Sheen had the beach house. He had the hot tub. He had the women around and the cigars. And it's like, well, that was on the TV for a young guy like me watching that going, well, that's sort of like being a king. Like he's got the women, he's got the house, he's got the money, he's got the fame, he's got all this stuff. And then they portray Alan in the show. He has the family, he has the son, but he's broke and he's poor and he's lonely and he's miserable. So they really paint that picture of that lifestyle as something to sort of hold on to. And for me, with Stifler as well, you watch American Pie over and over and over again. The subconscious mind works on repetition. It's like going to the gym. If you want to build strength, you need to go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and consistently go and over time you build strength. With the mind, it's the same thing. If you're watching American Pie, you're watching Friends, you're watching Two and a Half Men, and you're watching all these shows based on these guys being portrayed as kings, but treating a women a certain way to get safety amongst the group. Well, for me, I went, well, I'm playing that card. I'm playing the role of Stifler and Joey and Charlie in my own way because that's safe. He has friends. He has women. I want friends. I want women. So I'm just going to go and automatically download that program on a repetitive level and play that card. And I played that card till I was 26. Got to 26 and I was like, well, I don't have the beach house. I don't have the women because in reality, women don't like being treated like that. And I had to go on that journey to find that out. And it took me to that moment of that table to be like, well, they don't because I didn't have what they had. And it's like, well, what are they trying to do here? Because I did that program and it didn't work for me. So it was a matter of not listening to music in the same sort of way. A lot of the rap music and the music out there today is very, very sexual. If you're listening to that on a repetitive level, then you're going to act out that programming inside that music. So I was like, well, if they're programming me through the TV, through the music, through everything that I'm currently consuming, well, I need to take my earphones out. I need to turn the TV off. I need to turn these things off and find some empowering content. How do you do that? Well, there's music out there that's very empowering. It's independent, it ain't mainstream, but it's out there. So I might listen to music like that. I might listen to some sound healing to try and tune into the frequency of where I want to be on a repetitive level, 528 hertz. I'm like, oh, I might listen to this and just relax my mind and calm my nervous system down so that I can figure out what's true to me. Is that behavior true to me, or was that put there by a TV program that I thought was safe? And it was that navigating journey of what was true to me and what was someone else's belief or someone else's program to figure out how I can navigate my own journey. And for me, it takes time. You're not going to build the kingdom in 1 or 2 months. This is going to take time because for me, that American Pie, Friends, Two and a Half Men programming had been there since I was 12. And for me, that was 14 years worth of programming. Now I was watching porn when I was eight years old. So there's the other layer to it. So not only was I watching American Pie, Two and a Half Men and Friends,
Parents
I
in
was
all
also
of
watching
this.
porn. So I was watching porn. So my programming of women was very, you could say, bad, because for me, cutting back the porn was hard work because that was all I was used to for 20 years nearly. So that's a lot of programming to just pull the rug out of. And for people out there, you're gonna have moments where you're gonna go back because that's what you're used to, it's what you're familiar, safe, and comfortable in doing. So if you can start off small and put baby steps in and say, look, I'll give it a week. You get to the week, well done, awesome. But then as you keep moving, that resistance gets longer. And as that resistance gets longer, you'll look back and go, wow, I don't need that anymore. Because look how much better my life is without that thing, whether it's porn, whether it's alcohol, whether it's any of these things. Your life will be better once that resistance gets longer and you'll realize, oh wow, my life is better. I feel better. I have control over my mental health and my physical health more than when I had that thing. You'll notice the differences each time. You'll go deeper and deeper and deeper each time you go back, and you'll figure out, you'll understand, you go, oh wow, look, look how much better I look and feel. And for me, it was just that resistance getting longer and longer each time, learning how to channel that energy into my life, into my goals, into my dreams, has then enabled me to speak about these things, to start the business, to start the podcast, to write the book, and do these things that I've done. Was understanding that I had the power and the potential within me, and all I had to do was see it. Because once you see it, your life changes forever. And that's how this subconscious mind works. Repetition and subliminal messaging. There's things hidden inside your TV shows and movies that are there for a reason, and they are there to disempower you. You need to find things that empower you. And there's plenty of those things. This podcast is one, mine's one. They empower, they inspire. Listen to those stories, listen to those people on repetitive level. You'll eventually find your way through this interesting system we all currently live in.
What's your thoughts on social media in terms of?
Social media is interesting because I had a really awesome piece of advice from someone, and they said to me, become a creator, not a consumer. Because when you consume, you look at TikTok, you look at Instagram, they have these reels, right? And you got these young people, they're just flicking, and the next reel plays after the one's finished instantly. So you're getting this dopamine hit that's not real dopamine. It's technological, electrical dopamine that's not real. The real dopamine is building your testosterone, going to the gym, and being the person that you want to be. That's natural dopamine. Getting out in nature, getting out in the ocean is natural dopamine.
It's
But
different.
social
There's a
media can be
difference.
very harmful.
You're talking
Yeah,
about dopamine and serotonin.
correct. Yeah.
Serotonin is what you want. It's the sustainable good feeling. Dopamine, it hits you and you have to have more, and you have to have larger quantities of it in order to get the same feeling. Whereas
Correct.
serotonin it's a maintainable sort of high.
Mm. But our youth of today don't know what this is unless they're conscious and their families, our youth of today are just mindlessly scrolling, not knowing the effects it's having on mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health.
And for young kids, they're exposing them to EMF, and their bodies, they're thin, their skin is thinner, their bones aren't really developed totally yet. And so that's impacting them in a greater way than it does an adult who consumes large amounts of screen time.
Mm.
Just kind of a
And I find many people out there use that screen to distract themselves from what's really going on in their lives, to not go to that dark place, to not go to that place of wherever it is. It's this stuff that they've held on to for such a long time. It's in this box. They've left the box on the shelf. It's time to put the screens down, turn the screens off, walk over to that shelf, blow the dust off it, and open it up and step into your potential, because we all have the ability to do these things.
Read a book.
But then action, this is another part of the subconscious mind too. A lot of people will read those self-help books, but they won't action anything.
Well, yeah, you have to do stuff. Nothing changes until you actually do something different.
Correct. Action's a beautiful thing.
It can start with just even your thoughts and breathing. And I can remember when I first learned how to meditate. It's like 3 minutes was forever to me. Now I can sit down and an hour and a half can go by and I'm like, oh, I guess I need to stop and go do something.
Yeah.
Because this feels good.
Meditating is awesome. People say they can't meditate. Well, there's that many things going on inside their mind. Their mind's racing. It's having the ability to be able to just take those 3 deep breaths, and you'll find you'll be able to do it. But it's just taking that time to relax. People don't feel like they have time. You got plenty of time. It's what you do with it.
There's a quote about somebody who's a monk or something. Maybe it was the Dalai Lama that it was attributed to, but he's like, I've got a really busy day today. I better meditate for 4 hours instead of 2. It's just getting your mind in the right place. You're much more able to accomplish what you want to accomplish than if your mind's racing and you're running around doing all the things, but you're not really getting anything done.
100%. And the way this subconscious mind works is that if getting things done is not a program or not a thing that you saw as a child, then you won't get things done, because that's what you're used to. It works on repetition, as I said before, and it works on familiarity, comfortability, and finding safety amongst the tribe. If your family circle as you were growing up between the ages of 0 and 6 was full of alcohol and violence and all these things that are out there now for kids, then that's the program you're going to act out when you grow up, because that's what you're used to. You're not used to anything else. So if something else comes in, well, that's a very uncomfortable thing to be. People don't like being uncomfortable because we're programmed to be comfortable. Look at the school system. We look at everything out there that's out there. It's all about comfortability and not embracing the uncomfortability. We're forever seeking the comforts. It needs to be flipped on its head. We need to seek the uncomfortability, because in those uncomfortable moments are the chances and the changes you can make to grow and expand and evolve, rather than staying where you are and being comfortable. We came here to grow. We came here to evolve. We came here to learn. That's what we came here to do.
For sure. For sure. I can remember the first time I had to get up in front of my class and do a debate. I think I was in 6th grade. I went home sick. I just was like, I can't do this. There's no way. And now I have my own podcast. I talk to people all the time. It's just like, I can talk in front of groups of thousands. It just doesn't bother me anymore. But it's that training of, you have to be put in uncomfortable positions. You have to just do it sometimes, and it does get easier.
And I'll add to that story. I love what you just said, because my book and all my stuff was birthed from an inner child that I had inside the school system. Now, the subconscious mind remembers everything, but it puts these blocks and these barriers there to protect you. It wants to keep you safe. For me, I wanted to unpack Pandora's box, and I had the intent and the action behind, I want to explore my potential, my capability. Now, I remember being on a table 2.5 years ago with an awesome kinesiologist, And she said something happened to you when you were 6. Now, I went straight there and said, yeah, I was playing on the floor with Lego. And my parents were in a parent-teacher interview, and I was on the floor. And this teacher said, I used to write a lot of stories about mystical things, comic books, and I used to write a lot about being a hero. Here in Australia, the AFL is a very popular sport. I used to write about kicking goals after sirens and being that hero being the hero. And this teacher said, oh, we don't want Nathan writing this stuff anymore. He needs to write what everyone else is writing, and he needs to do the work everyone else is doing. And for me, I downloaded that as a program as a 6-year-old of, well, my writing's not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'll conform and I'll do that. Now, for me, that blocked my writing ability because that one person's perception or perspective stopped me from doing it. So for me, I went back to that kid playing the Lego and I just held him and said, Nathan, you can do and be anything. That's one person's perception of who and what you can be. You can do and be anything. There's 6 billion people out here on the planet, Nathan. There's going to be one person that will resonate with what you have to say or write. From that moment forward, the next 6 weeks, I wrote my book. 3 months after that, I started the podcast. 2 months after that, I was like, I'm going to launch a website. I did those things from that inner child that blocked. It was a safety block. And I went, I don't want to block this anymore. So I went back to that child, told him what he needed to hear in that moment, and told that teacher to go jump, and I'm going to do this thing. And I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it because I'm worthy of doing it. And bang, it just shifted so much because here I am now.
Yeah, and it really is just a matter of making a decision and embracing who you were meant to be, regardless of other people's opinions, because they're just opinions.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that woman was experiencing. She's probably not even still alive at this point. You know?
I don't know.
I know most of my teachers are gone. They're just in that age group that those people aren't around anymore. Not very many of them anyway. But it's recognizing that they had an opinion about something when you were 6 years old, and they probably had an ulterior motive. It probably wasn't about what you were writing so much as she was wanting everybody to conform to a certain standard so that she wouldn't get in trouble. Because
Correct.
most people are personally motivated in those situations. Well, in all situations, really. It's like if you're getting up and talking in front of a whole bunch of people, most people want to know what's in it for them. And if it's not about them, then they don't really care.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cynical way of looking at things, but and then it gets back to what you were talking about programming, because we are fed stuff, especially these days, that's designed to hit us where we're vulnerable. AI and social media is really good at this, but even in the games kids play online, it's subliminal messaging, but it's on steroids these days. Your phone listens to you when you're walking around talking, and it shows you ads about what you were talking about. Sometimes it shows you ads about what you were thinking about, and that terrifies me personally. I'm not sure how that
That's
happens.
the thing. And we talk a lot about this stuff too. And you could talk about who's behind it and then who's behind them and them and them. But the thing is, they'll get you if they can put you in that state, because they know, they've proven it, that if they can put you in fear, terror, panic, you will do and say anything. And look at the last 4 years. You had people lining up to do stuff that was probably not in their best interest, but they did it anyway because they're in a fear, panic, and terror. If you can bring yourself
if you
into
stood against that, man, you had to have really thick skin and you had to be really strong.
Try being 26 and the lifestyle I used to live, that was going against the grain on many levels for me. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because look at what's going on now. People are sick.
Yeah.
And for me, I was just going to add to the fear, panic, and terror. If you can bring yourself into a centered, calm place, you'll be able to make decisions based on your own influences, not being influenced by all of these things. Now, if you look at how all this was orchestrated, it was orchestrated as soon as you walk into the school system because you're conforming, you're complying, and you're looking up to an authority figure to rule you, to guide you, to boss you around and tell you what to do every day. Then you leave the school system and then you're doing that in a job as well. So you are being told what to do every single day. A lot of
Because the
people out there don't
school's
know how to
job
govern
is
themselves.
to train you to become not necessarily a robot, but to work in factories and in situations where you're told what to do and you better just do it. Because people who have the ability to think for themselves, they tend to become unemployable.
Mm-hmm. I do. But the people and the kids that think for themselves inside the school system get labeled with all this stuff to keep them in that box and never ever stepping out of it. We know what those labels are. I don't have to name them, but yeah, it starts there. That's where it starts. I say to people all the time when they jump on coaching calls and things with me, I say, you weren't born this way. You were manufactured this way. As soon as you walked into that school system, they manufactured this for you. This isn't your fault. You had no control over this. You just downloaded these programs. They're all safe. They're all familiar. It was all repetition. You're working as designed. But hey, we can sort of reprogram you from that manufacturing programming and help you step into the person you were supposed to be. Now, that will be uncomfortable. That will be unfamiliar, be very unsafe. But in 8, 9, 10 years' time, it will be familiar, it will be more comfortable, and it will be more safe, but you'll still continue to grow. Because the school system wants to stop you from growing and they want to manufacture you, as you just said before, into a worker rather than a thinker.
Thinkers are expensive.
100%.
I homeschooled 3 of my 5 kids for that very reason. And then when they got into high school, or when they turned 13, we have an alternative school in our community, which is like 7 hours a day, 4 days a week, no homework. And they were for basically it's for kids that couldn't make it in regular high school. They were just they're the more creative kids and kids that were getting into trouble for the most part. But I thought it would be a good idea to send my kids there anyway. And so they would go there when they were 13, and they each had a different experience. They went for 3 years. They all graduated when they were 16, except the youngest. She graduated when she was 15 and 3/4. She just like she blew through it. But then it was during COVID. But our approach to it was there's only 4 teachers over there. I knew all 4 teachers. I knew what they were teaching. And it was a game. The game is you're going to get A's. I don't really care how you get those A's, but you need to get A's. And they would cheat. They would tell me what they were doing. And it's just like, well, okay. I don't care. It's a game. What we're going for is that piece of paper that says I graduated from high school. They did make A's. They did creative things. The youngest, who graduated when she was 15, she never did anything like not totally on the up and up, let's put it that way, to get her grades. She made all A's except for one class, and he gave her a B+, just because he couldn't give her straight A's through the whole thing. And it was just it's the approach that parents take to schools. Like, it's the teacher's job to give you information. It's your job to assimilate that information and feed it back to them in the way that they want to hear it. Whether it's right or
Mhm.
wrong is not anywhere near the point, because most of it's wrong. Just let's be honest.
Hmm.
They're not keeping up with what's happening, and there's information that comes out every day. It's just the amount of information is just like spilling out so fast in the world that school in the traditional sense, it has to change.
Yeah.
It it's a waste
If
of time. I'm
If
sorry.
it is, if people from your show want to listen to my show on the Breaking Free podcast, my last 3 episodes, I'm showcasing a lot of these alternative systems, these former teachers that have started these alternative systems, and they're doing some really awesome things. There's children that are
Yeah.
starting podcasts at like 12 years old and putting it on Spotify. There's children that are wanting to do TED Talks. I interviewed a 14-year-old last week, and she just blew me away. She's doing meditation. She's thinking for herself. She's looking at Joe Dispenza. She's looking at these other people as they're her you could say leaders and idols. And it's like, oh my God, she's doing the yoga, she's doing all these things. I'm like, oh my God, like these alternative systems are doing some really awesome things. However, you have these government department sort of systems wanting to shut these down because look at what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
these
creating people that have ideas, and the ideas are like spreading. There's
yeah.
like a young girl on YouTube who has like millions of downloads for her shorts. She's 17, and I can't remember her name. I wish I could, but she's just amazing. And she goes on talk shows or on podcasts, and she talks about the attention to detail and how she studied all these other really good podcasts who did shorts like Mr. Beast, and
Mm.
she like took it all apart, and so now she thinks that if she creates a short and it doesn't get a million downloads or a million views, there's something wrong with that episode or that video. She's that good. And there's like so many kids out there
Yep.
who have YouTube channels and TikTok and all of these different um content creation systems out there that they're monetizing, and they're just doing spectacularly well.
Mm.
And they're bringing value to the marketplace, something that's, been missing for a long time.
Yeah, and I say that to a lot of the children that I work with too, the teens. I say, look, there are children your age that are making some serious amount of money here online, and you can do this too. Here's how you can do it. Follow these people. Take the good and the bad and the ugly, make it your own, and go out there and shine. Because in a world that doesn't want you to shine, being the one that shines will get you so far. That's what I say every time.
Yeah, and it's not on looks or anything else. It's on, who's out there being the most creative.
Mm.
How different can you be? I mean, look at the people that were doing those planks. It's something really outlandish, and
But
you're
that's the thing inside the school system. We're looking for that familiarity and that safety amongst the tribe. We don't want to be different because we don't want to be ostracized.
okay.
That's
So back to my
deeply
daughter
embedded.
again, the 15-year-old. They kept telling her, don't let her wear these dresses. My daughter, she dresses up. She looks like an anime character most of the time. She has pink hair. She's she's so cool. But she just she just when she was young, I never really said, no, you can't wear that. She would wear these crazy outfits. And the school was like, no, we just want her to wear her pajamas to school, sweatpants and a t-shirt. So, like, okay, Sarah, just wear your sweatpants and a t-shirt to
That's
school.
awesome. You're just letting her explore and figure things out for herself. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she's so creative, and it's who she is. And maybe because I was 44 when I had her, I just like, oh honey, you're the greatest gift ever. I don't I do care what you do, but explore who you are. You're you're great. and
Mm.
and she's just grown into this amazing human being.
I
All
like
of my
that.
kids are really great, but she's she was the baby, so I can be really proud of her.
That's awesome.
So how do you do this coaching that you do? Is it in groups? Is it one-on-one? How
I
does it
do
work?
have groups, yeah. I launched a teenage program back in March. The growth that those four children were in, the growth was there. Like the data was there. Like it was that started here, and I remember. I'll tell you a story about it. I said to this kid, he wanted a soccer ball. He's 13, or was 13 in March. And he wanted a soccer ball, and I knew he wanted that soccer ball because Mum and I were exchanging emails about it, and I wanted to bring it up to show how he could get it in another way, because he immediately went, "Mum, can I have a soccer ball?" And Mum went like that and just shook her head. And I said, "Okay, what does that feel like?" And he goes, I feel sad. I feel angry. I wanted Mum. I said, "Okay, well, what's another way you can get a soccer ball, Joel?" And he went, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, well, what about if you're at the supermarket tomorrow, you're at a market or wherever you go, and you just happen to find someone that's got a bag of soccer balls that's like, I've got all these balls here, I just want to get rid of them. What if you're at, because he was still going to school at this point, what if you're at school in a couple of weeks' time and the PE teachers, ordered a heap of new soccer balls and he's wanting to get rid of some that are still relatively new, but because there's newer ones, he just wants to get rid of them just to." Anyway, fast forward a month and Mum emails me. "Oh, the PE teacher gave Joel a soccer ball the other day." I went, "Oh, really?" Joel's smile on his face. She said you couldn't wipe it off, because what I helped him through was that there are other ways to get that thing. You have to be focused on just one thing. That PE teacher did order new soccer balls and gave some of the kids ones because, like, bang, there it was. And he walked away with a brand new soccer ball. Didn't have to pay a cent. And he's like, "Thank you." I said, "Well, if you can expand your mind and open it up, you can open up to all these potentials. But we get so focused on that one thing and that one outcome." I did that too. I went and saw psychics and different people that told me I was going to do this and do that, and I got focused on it going the way I wanted it to go. But I needed to open my mind and expand and be like, well, there's so many potentials, so many things. It can happen in any way. Just be open to that, and then take the inspired action for that to come into your life. And me learning that helped Joel be like, "Well, mate, if you just expand that, you're gonna allow that in because you want that ball. So you're gonna get that ball, just that Mum isn't gonna get it for you."
Yeah. So
Unbelievable.
rather than going around just being mad at mom, and then you've taken your focus off of getting the soccer ball, now you're just mad at mom.
Yeah.
Now you're out there looking for the opportunities. When is it going to show up? I can hardly wait.
That's the thing too. We become very impatient with it too. So that creates another energy. It's just finding that place of stillness, of calm, and trusting that whatever that thing is will come, because you've already put the order into the universe. So it's gonna come, or God or spirit or Jesus or whatever you do believe.
Yeah.
And that universal casino of life will just give you that thing in the most beautiful timing. But there might be some work for you to do to get that thing. You might have to go through some pain, some stuff to be able to get to the other side of that. So who knows? But at some point, that thing will come with inspired action, trust, patience, resilience, and discipline.
For sure. I
Yeah.
love that. And I love the story because it's a true case of manifesting and
Mm-hmm.
opening up to the possibilities. And we
And
all do
that's,
it
yeah.
all the
And
time.
that's what I teach inside my programs, is that the school system teaches you the goal setting and the manifesting to a point. They don't teach you the rest. Once you figure out the rest, look out.
Yeah,
And I teach that.
that
Or
is,
not teach it, I facilitate it, I guide it so they can, yeah. But I'll say teach. But yeah, it's a powerful thing. And that's how powerful we are. And also inside the school system, it's all about resumes, cover letters, career expos. You don't have people like us, Jill, coming in and saying, "This is how you start a podcast. This is how you start an online business. This is how you can make money online." It's just that manufacturing of that worker, rather than expanding the children's minds, being like, well, if you don't want to do the job, you can do this other cool stuff. We're not gonna highlight or showcase that other cool stuff. Here's a career expo. Go and be a truck driver. Go and be a nurse. Go and be a doctor. You'll get all the gratification. You get all the safety, all the glory of being those people, because they're portrayed in the media as being such powerful, awesome people. Don't worry about little old Johnny over here who's got an online business and is absolutely thriving and killing it. We'll give you all the glory. Go and do your job, and then learn to resent that for the rest of your life. Well done.
Yeah,
See you
and
later.
spend a lot of money to
Yep.
realize how miserable you are, especially in the medical community. Man, I
Yeah.
talk to people all the time that spent gobs, and I mean gobs of money to
Yeah.
become doctors or nurses or physician's assistants or whatever, and they're just they're miserable. They work long
Mm.
hours. They're not really compensated all that well, considering the debt that they had to take on to get to that point. And they could have gone and become a health coach and lived a much better life and
Mm.
actually helped people, had an impact that instead of just, continuing on a charade and making the pharmaceutical companies rich, they could actually have an impact on one human who, when one human heals, it impacts
The ripple.
all the, yeah, the ripple effect that impacts everybody around them.
Mm.
So
But
how do
there's no
people,
safety. There's no safety in that though. If you look at the way the media portray these people, there's a lot of safety in that on a subliminal, subconscious level. If you want the
they're lying to you
gratification
though.
and the exactly, but if you want to be a hero, then they'll portray a hero for you to go and be. It's not necessarily the natural hero. It's a inverted sick
Mhm.
hero. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible the amount of lying that goes on to young people who are at a point where they could do whatever they want to do, because there's really a very short amount of time from the time you get out of high school to the time you end up starting to form families or form partnerships where you're free to do whatever you want to do. you you really can explore all your options, and we push people into going to college, which is another money making conglomerate out there that doesn't really help people. It just enslaves them in debt. They're going to get the same kind of job when they get out of college that they could have, joined a union or learned a trade or learned a skill, and they've got all
But
that
you're
debt.
easier. You're easier to lie to. You're easier to rule. You're easier to manipulate. You're easier to govern when you're in debt, when you're in fear, when you're in panic, when you're in fear, when you're broke, when you're weak, when you're poisoned, when you're all of these things. You're easier to manipulate. You're easier to manufacture. If you can empower yourself step by step, inch by inch, progression, not perfection, you'll be able to empower yourself to sidestep all this shit.
Yeah.
That's how it
And
works.
we really need that for the next generation, because the system we've got going on right now is A, broken. I'm so happy about that. B, needs to change.
It does.
And it is changing because,
Mm.
coaches are out there talking to people, and people are waking up. They're
That's the thing.
realizing.
One conversation, one seed may not grow in the moment. You might really trigger that person. Might be a very heated conversation, but 6 to 12 months' time, that seed will grow. If it's supposed to grow, it will. And that person might circle back and say, hey, thank you for saying what you said. Sorry for the way I reacted, not responded. You've helped me. And it's like that one conversation could just light a spark, create a ripple, and one by one, inch by inch, step by step, we will get there, because this is the time of it now. And the next, astrologically speaking, here, the next 4 years are going to be huge here on Earth, as some energetic things are happening. We're connected to that, so we're going to shift into that, and it's going to be an interesting 4 years. Could get rocky, but we all chose to be here. I do believe that.
No, it's so exciting.
It is.
I really believe that good is coming, and it's already here. Today was a good day.
Hmm.
And today will be a good day for you. You're
Yep.
just starting.
I am just starting. It's actually, yeah, what are we, 16 hours apart? So you're
Yeah.
Friday night there.
Friday afternoon and your Saturday morning. And I love that, we can time travel and meet in space somewhere that doesn't even exist to
Yeah.
have this
And speaking of
conversation.
that too, if your listeners and your viewers want to be that better version of themselves, or they have this dream or this goal, well, speaking of time travel, that person already exists out there. So if you can imagine that person, walk up to that person, what's it feel like? What's it taste like? What's it smell like? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And then walk up to that person and just, or for me, I just walked up to that person that wants to be the father and the husband and the provider and the leader. I just walked up to him and said, I want to be you. Now, 3 years ago, I walked up to that person after the fold out table incident, and he had the podcast, he had the book, he had all these things. I walked up to him and said, I want to be you. I'm living that guy now. That guy existed. 3 years ago, I wanted to be him. Here he is. And in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, whenever it is, there's another version of me I want to be. So I'm continuing to step into those versions of me that exist. So that it helps me still to grow, evolve, and become that next better version of me. I want to see
And
how far I can go up Success Mountain. I want to get to the top of that thing. So that's where I'm going.
and and the people that you need to help you, they just will come alongside you and walk with you. It
100%.
I've met so many people on this journey, and it's like
Same.
they're all so interesting and they're all doing
falling
something.
falling through falling through that table 24 hours later, 5 hours later, I was introduced to my mentor now, Jason. I then went on a journey up the northeast coast of Australia with my brother, and we met so many other awesome people that helped me step into my power and helped me remember who I am. It was that table moment that set off this path of where I am right now. If it wasn't, it would have happened in another way, of course, but it had to be that table. And it's like, well, those people, they were already there. I just had to go through some stuff to be able to have those people come into my life, and
Mhm.
also let go of those old belief systems of that old life to welcome in that newer life. It was hard letting go of my old town and my old friends and some of my family. But the people I've met since, it's chalk and cheese.
Never heard that expression before. I love it.
It's an Australian one, it's an old one, but I've said that a bit lately. I don't know where I've got that from, but
And geez.
yeah,
Leaves a good picture in your head.
it does.
So how can people get in touch with you, Nathan?
Well, this is February now, isn't it? So we've time jumped. We're actually in November, but this is being released in February. So my website is nathanfrancis.com. They can find me there. You can find my name again on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Just put in Nathan Francis and will come up. You can find my podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Rumble, and Amazon. It's the Breaking Free podcast. By the time this goes up, I could be nearly 200 episodes in, and it's so many awesome free information there, so many awesome guests, heaps of solo ones as well, and the information's all there for free. My website, there's a lot of blogs on there that I've written over the course of my journey over the last 4 years. You can circle back to the very first one, be very different to the one I've currently written. Even my first podcast that I did, I cut the guest off and all. It was a very, very funny podcast. It is still there. It can sort of, for me, I just grew on that podcast. If I didn't start it, I would have started it. And I just learned a lot along the way. And yeah, everything's there. And if you really, if you want to work with me and you can do that too, you can book in a free discovery call and we can have a chat about all things you and how I can help you strive to be the best version of you, because I see your potential. I had someone see it in me, and I love that I can now see it in others, because we all have potential. We all came here to do something. We were just manufactured and programmed to do something else that wasn't organic to us. I'm here to help you remember who you are and what that is.
Awesome. So what's the one thing you hope the audience takes away from this conversation
I hope the
today?
one thing the audience takes away from this podcast is that you have the power, you have the potential. You came here to do some really awesome things. If you can sit with yourself and find that stillness and find that calm and allow yourself to feel what it is that you need to feel. Feel the anger, feel the sadness, feel the pain teacher, feel all of these things, but then allow yourself to feel the joy, feel the excitement, feel happy, feel all the emotions, and then ask yourself two simple questions. Who am I? Who am I beyond the title that I've given myself? What if it's the job or if it's the coach or podcast host or author, whatever it is? Who am I beyond that? Keep asking yourself who you are. Get to that place where you don't need any of these labels. You're just you. Because you're more than just your name. You're a soul that has inhibited this body for a human experience, but you're also here to do some cool stuff. Ask yourself who you are and keep asking yourself who you are. And then ask yourself, what's true to me? Is that belief system true to me? And if it's not true to you, ask yourself where it come from. You'll know where it's come from. Might be your family home, might be school, might be somewhere. And then ask yourself, well, how can I change that? Because once you ask yourself those questions consistently over a 3-week, 4-week, 5-week period, you will be a different person. Because your perception of yourself and the world will begin to change, and allow yourself to really feel that change, because you can then inch by inch, step by step, progression or perfection, get to that next version of you. You have so much power and so much potential. If you could just see a little bit of it, just a teensy tiny bit, it ignites this spark. The spark ignited in me, and you will be the only one that will put it out. There'll be no other influence that will put it out. It will just be you versus you. And that's the way to go. Keep going. You got this.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thank you for having me.